Pop-Off makes you think.
I can't believe you just said that.
Pop-Off links to lifestyle.
If you're happy, you'll be successful, you'll have the right relationships, and you'll make choices that are healthier for you.
Pop-Off makes you smile.
He said, I don't want you pulling his tail or riding him or sitting on him. He said, and if you do that, he said, I will give you a Lassie puppy next year.
Are you serious? Did you? Well, did you get one?
Oh, yes, I did.
And now it's time to Pop Off with Mary Jane Popp.
And it is that time again, time for the Pop-Off Radio Show. Got a good one for you today. A little bit later on, do you know anybody who has bipolar? I think I do. I mean, not that I just, out and out ask somebody if they have bipolar, but you kind of can tell. And so we're going to talk with someone who's lived with it for 34 years. But she has written a book, which I think is perfect. The name of the book, Bipolar Chronicles, From Crazed to Content. I like the content part for him because that's got to be really rough to live with. But before we do that, there's a new Gallup report out. Who do you think is the most stressed or angry or worried during this pandemic? Now you think, well, everybody. Well, there is a group that's more so than anybody else. And you are going to find out who right now. Hang in there. It's Pop Off. And you know we always do pop off.
Rock the boat, don't rock the boat, baby. Rock the boat, don't tip the boat over. Rock the boat, don't rock the boat, baby. Rock the boat.
Well, maybe we will rock your boat a little bit because who do you think is most stressed, sad, angry, worried during this pandemic? Would you believe women with young children? Like they don't have enough on their plate, right? Well, Laura Lynn Knight can attest to that fact from a new Gallup report. Laura is a former elementary school teacher. I really commend her for doing that. I tried elementary school teaching and I went crazy, and even not during the pandemic. And she's also a certified positive discipline educator specializing in helping families to create calm home environments. Good luck. It's amazing. Laura Lynn, nice to have you with us on the show.
Thank you. It's so nice to be here. Thank you for having me.
Oh, absolutely. We need to talk about this because are you surprised that women are the most counted on for everything? Their regular duties, their careers, their homes, and then homeschooling for a lot because of the pandemic. I'm not surprised if they're the most stressed.
I'm not surprised at all, and I can attest to it because I'm doing all of the above, and I feel the stress too. I mean, I think that's the beauty and the work that I do is I'm too feeling the stress, and that's why I feel so passionate about talking about the tools, because how do we get through this?
It's called survival of the fittest. That's what, Laura Lynn. So now how many kids do you have?
I have two. My daughter is 6, and my son is 8. And let me tell you, 25 students in a classroom was far easier for me than 2.
Why? Why?
Well, in the classroom, there's the routine, and they listen, and they have the structured activity. And, I mean, I love teaching. I love being a mom, too. I love being at home with my children. But at home, it is their safe place. And so that's where kids feel comfortable to share all of their big feelings that they might hold in a bit more during the day. Mm-hmm. And so that really is affecting parents, too, because they're having kids all day long, and all of their feelings are coming out, and all of our feelings are coming out. And it's like, whoa, how do we manage this very chaotic experience that we're all in?
Yeah, for gosh sakes. Okay, so schooling, at home, that's got to be crazy. I mean, you're a teacher, and you know what the routine is or how things work. Do you get confused when you have to do a Zoom teaching type of thing?
Yes. Teaching at home is very different than teaching in the classroom. Again, going back to do your children want to be taught by you? Do they even want to stay on the computer? I mean, imagine our fatigue that we get from being on Zoom meetings and phone calls.
Yeah.
And, so many children, that's just too much for them.
Yeah.
And a lot of schools, are opening back up, and we'll see how that continues to progress.
I hope they wear their masks.
Yes, and I hope that, if they're not in schools, then being in small pods, I mean, as much as we can continue to socialize them in a safe way that parents feel comfortable with is really nice for their development. It's so important for kids.
It scares the bejeebers out of me because, I mean, this Delta variant, and then we got the Delta Plus coming and a Lambda variant. These kids are going to be affected by this for a long time. It's not over. It's not over. Mm-hmm. And that's what kind of frightens me more than anything else, because will there ever be a normal for these kids?
I hope so, and I hope that in inventing the new normal that we take our experience through this and kind of look at, like, what are our core family values and where have we been spread too thin, and what was working well in the school systems and what wasn't, and how do we come through this, being wiser in the end.
Yeah. Wiser? Are you kidding? I'm not sure. The people who are in charge are going to be wiser, if you know what I mean.
Our internal families can be.
Yeah, that's for sure. Why is it that it's always the mom expected to do it all? Where is dad? Where is the support system?
That's a great question. I think us moms, for me personally, I want to be there for my kids, and I want to make dinner, and then I want to pursue my passion and career choices. And so,
good luck.
My husband very much shows up, but he shows up at a different capacity because what they look for from him is different from the emotional support that they often look for in me.
Gotcha.
So it's taxing. It's hard.
It is. But, I mean, we've gone through this for decades. Mm-hmm. Laura Lynn. Talking about women wanting to, bring home the bacon and have the career and take care of the kids and have a, husband. And it's like, wait a minute. Somewhere there's got to be a line. There's got to be some kind of support system for that poor mom who's going nuts.
I agree, and a lot of my work is devoted to creating that support system. Especially I think my real work that I do with parents is helping them cultivate tools, because it is a lot and it is stressful and we can't do it alone. And how do we have tools in place so that when we get really upset and we want to yell at our kids, where's that pause? How do we build in that pause? How do we go from like the chaotic throes of get dressed and we have to get out the door and brush your teeth, we have to go to bed now. Like, how does that all become easier within our home so that our stress level reduces and we can seek the help that we actually need?
So have you talked to your kids at all? Now, the 6-year-old, 6 and 8, they're still going to be in school, about the possibility that could be another year at home?
We haven't talked to them about that yet. We do not go back to school here in California where I am until after Labor Day.
Oh, okay.
So there's a lot more that's going to be revealed, I think, in this next month. But I know other schools are open right now, so kids are going to school here in California. And it seems like in other states, too, from what I'm reading and seeing on the news, although I know many families are making the decision to keep their children at home too. And it is an interesting balance of talking to your children because we don't want to scare them too much about what's going on, but it's also nice for them to have some facts depending on their age of, the reality of the world that we're living in.
Absolutely. And how do you feel about Governor Newsom coming out with a mandate that teachers must be vaccinated before they can go back into the classroom, or if not, then tested on a regular basis?
Well, I think that we all need to be as safe as possible, and those are big decisions that are being made, and I understand that, we're weighing the pros and cons of every side, and I'm going to be really interested to see how the teachers respond to that.
Yeah.
And I know so many teachers in the same school that I taught in for many, many years have now retired just because, not only vaccinations and stuff, but just the logistics of trying to teach children via computers is so foreign to them. I mean, so many teachers that have been in the field for so long, they don't know how to do Zoom. This is not, our way of teaching children.
Well, and they lose a certain amount of the social part of it, and having kids around you and the teachers, the interplay, the one-on-one. It isn't the same when you do Zoom. They say, oh, well, you're still seeing them in their faces. Nah, you don't get it. It's not the same thing. It's the human part of it, and human means eyeball to eyeball, if you know what I mean.
Yes, we do. We need to really have that human part, and we need for kids to be in an environment where they can have misunderstandings with their peers, and they can, just develop social emotional tools, and they can learn how to navigate all of that social component that goes into school, because it's not just about the academics, right? It's also a big learning curve for children, especially at younger ages, but even as they're older, of like, how do I learn problem-solving skills when things come up at school? I mean, those are invaluable tools that we're going to need to track very closely for children and how they're progressing if they've been more isolated at home.
And it's also, when you think about it, I don't know how, whether it's mom or dad or whoever at home doing the homeschooling during this pandemic and maybe longer, how can they teach? How can they understand all the teaching acumens? I mean, it's like, if my kid has, calculus, I don't even remember my calculus anymore, or algebra, or any of the other things. There's so much that a parent almost has to catch up on everything. What do you think?
I agree, and I'm so glad that my children are 6 and 8. Going through this. Yeah. Because I taught first grade and kindergarten, and then a little bit of third grade. And so I feel like, I'm at their level. I can teach them what they need to learn. I can teach reading and writing and math. But if I were doing calculus, we'd have to find an exchange. I'd have to find another parent. Why don't you teach my kids calculus, and I'll maybe support you in another way. And I'm hoping, I'm seeing some of that going on in my community and the parents that I'm working with, and I'm hoping it's going on at a larger scale too, where we can all just really reach out and support each other for the kids. And
you have to know how to handle the stress, because other than that, you can't be a good teacher at home if you don't handle the stress, because then you're going to pass that stress on to your kids. Exactly. And so much of the work that I do is working with parents on their own self-regulation and kind of what tools do they have in their toolbox for when stress comes up. So I'll give you an example. I often have families make a pause poster, and it's where we sit down and we come up with a plan, and we say, okay, the next time that you're really stressed and you want to react to your child, what can you do? Let's make a list of 5 things. Maybe it's going on a walk outside. Is that before or after you scream at the top of your lungs? So, this is before. This is like when you're in that calm. You're in that calm state, and you're like, hey, I think I want to stop yelling and reacting so much to my kids. And often parents think that, and then they have no plan, right? And then it just happens again. They get stuck in the cycle. So if we want to change any behavior, we need to create a plan. Right? What am I going to do? Create the plan, and then practice. Hang it up in your home. Model it. I'm feeling really frustrated right now. Let me go over and practice one of my tools from my pause posters. So that's on my website, lauralynneknight.com. You can download it for free. And the cool thing is then kids make their own too. And my kids will say, I'm picking a tool from my poster. They actually, it works, which is incredible. So, but when you make that list, and they've got their list, and what do you do for discipline? If they're acting up and they're not paying attention and all that kind of thing. Now, in the classroom, you have things you can do. What do you do at home?
That's also a great question. So at home, there's many things you can do, and it really depends on the way that they're acting out. If my child is really angry, then going to their pause poster or picking something, from their list is a great example. If they're acting really wild, then perhaps we need to go take a break, sit on the chair. When you're more calmed down, we can have a discussion and problem solve. So for my discipline, I'm always looking at how can I teach these long-range goals that I have for my children. I want them to be critical thinkers. I want them to be problem solvers. I want them to be able to navigate hardships when they come up. So it's less of that authoritarian parenting model that many of us grew up with of you live in my house and you do what I do. And it's more of an authoritative parenting model, which is I'm going to have firm limits, but I'm going to be kind with those limits, and I'm going to teach you how to problem solve and navigate through these everyday difficulties that arise.
Now, which grades did you teach?
First grade primarily, and then also kindergarten and third.
Okay, and third. Okay. So at 6 years old and 8 years old, what level are they as far as the grades?
So my daughter will go into first, and my son will go into third.
So you're going to be okay probably for another year, but then they're going to start going into fourth and fifth grade, and the really it kind of starts changing, doesn't it?
It does. It does change, and so a lot of the work that I do is kind of because I don't have the direct experience of having children that age. I look to other mentors in the field that are really researching, what tools are most effective and how do you kind of create these goals that are going to last a lifetime for your children and the character building. But it always comes back to this authoritative parenting approach, which seems to be the most effective, which is being kind yet firm and having limits, and then bringing in other tools, like I said, to kind of help in the moment of the chaos and the discord.
And there will be, a lot of parents, well, it'll be okay. Or maybe, they counted on them going to school so they don't have to deal with that.
Yeah. No, there will be many, many moments of chaos and discord, and that happens, even in my house. And it's just what tools do we have to navigate it so that I'm not in a place of reaction. I want to be, if we think about the human brain, we have the upper part of our brain. That's where our prefrontal cortex is. That's our rational thinking mind. And then we have the lower part of our brain. That's the amygdala. We hear a lot about that. That's that fight, flight, freeze. Mm-hmm. We could call that the reptilian brain. I want to be out of my reptilian brain as much as possible. I want to be in my prefrontal cortex more often than not. And what's interesting about kids is they will not develop their prefrontal cortex fully until they're about 25 years old. So I'm always
in some cases, I think it's more like 35, but that's okay.
And so I'm always thinking, how am I going to act as a prefrontal cortex for my child right now? How am I going to help get them back into that part of their mind?
Now, did you teach other kids by Zoom?
I did not. I stopped teaching before the pandemic, so I did not teach other kids via Zoom. I just was teaching my own kids, and then they were in school for most of the year last year. So I had some of the online teaching experience, but I haven't had to do it for a whole group of kids. Got
it. So I'm trying to picture what it would be like, being in a classroom, which I did just sub-teaching when I was working my PhD. And I find it absolutely incredible in the lower grades, all the way through high school, for that matter, how you handle things in a classroom. I also taught on the college level as an associate professor, and that I could handle because if something was wrong, I'd always be able to say, get out. You don't have, I don't need to have you stay in my class if you're going to do those kinds of things. You can't do that in the lower grades. And how do you handle, now you're teaching your kids at school. Are you teaching them by Zoom also, or are you handling the whole thing?
I was having my kids taught somewhat through the school that they were at, but the hours were minimal, and then I would supplement the rest because being the teacher that I am, I know the curriculum, I know where they need to get, I'm looking at the end of the year benchmarks, and so I want to make sure that they're academically progressing the way that they need to. Not easy, but
yeah,
we made it through that part.
So how, I assume that you're married, right?
I am.
Okay. How does your husband come into any of this, maybe even with homework or something?
He does, but his work, he is an essential worker, and so he stayed open. His work has stayed open this whole time. So really it has been me and the kids at home. And he does come in. We don't have a ton of homework in the school that we're at, so I feel lucky for that. But he'll help with the after school, piano and all those things that are not my forte, that he will help the kids with.
Yeah, but it just seems like they get away with a little more, just because, having, I don't know how you do it. I mean, I admire you. I admire you for being a teacher in the lower grades like that, and I admire you being a mom at home with your kids, especially with the pandemic, because you can't throw them out the door. They got to stay inside. And I'm not being facetious here. I'm being honest,
Yeah.
There was a time when kids were growing up that the parents really did throw them out the door, come back at dinner, and
yes, and
go out and
that's how
play.
I was raised. I was completely raised that way, just go out and play in the neighborhood. But even before the pandemic, we are not living in that kind of culture anymore. I mean, especially here where I am in the Bay Area. I mean, it's very scheduled. Kids have play dates if they want to get together, which are scheduled ahead of time. They're all doing after-school activities. And I think that's where a lot of the stress also comes in for parents, and especially for moms, is that there isn't that communal support that there once was. It's not the whole neighborhood kind of chipping in and watching the kids like they used to.
Oh, yeah. You didn't want to do anything wrong in your neighborhood because there was always somebody watching.
Yeah.
And they were snitches. They told on you, and you had to pay the price for not doing what you were supposed to do. So, where do we go from here? I mean, parents they're hoping that everything will be some semblance of normal, but it's going to be a long time, and so where do parents even start with this? Do they try and get back to their own work and their own careers? Are you going to go back to teaching? Regular teaching?
No, I won't go back to regular teaching just because I do so much work in my parent education, and I'm coming out with my first book soon, and I have some children's books, so I have my own, career path that has come from being an elementary school teacher.
Well, yeah, but you're going to be
really
busy too. I mean, that's your new career,
Yes, I am busy, and after I put the kids to bed, I stay up and I write my book.
Oh boy!
And I take moments like this to, where I need help, and I can come and have a phone call with you. And I think where parents go from here is getting their own internal space and well-being as solid as possible so that we can navigate the difficulties of the world.
Yeah.
And so that's when I said, I'm working with parents on self-regulation. I teach mindfulness and meditation. I mean, really, for me, it has to come down to what can I actually control, which is very little, but I can control myself and the way that I'm building my own toolbox so that I have something to give to my children and the rest of my family.
Yeah, you bet. Do you have a website?
I do. It's Laura Lynn, LINN, Knight.com.
Okay.
Knight with a K.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for taking the time to be with us. You have a book coming out. Are you still working on the book?
I'm still working on it. I am about halfway done, and it's a toolbox for parents and for their kids. So it's written for both adults and kids simultaneously to help them build a toolbox so they can have a calmer home.
Oh, we all need a calmer home. Make a box for all of us. How's that?
I will. I'm making a toolbox for everyone.
Thanks.
And you can find a lot of the tools on my website, too.
I appreciate that, Laura. Take care, and I wish you the best with your family, and stay well.
Thank you. You, too. Thank you for having me.
You bet. And that's Laura Lynn Knight, LauraLinnKnight. That's her website, lauralynn.com. Hang in there for the good life. We'll make it. Promise.